All right, guys, we got more Michael Flynn news. So Michael Flynn was back in court for the in banc, I guess you say, appeals, where they had all of the district appeals judges hearing the case because apparently the 2-1 ruling in Michael Flynn's favor was not enough for Judge Emmett Sullivan, who basically he's a deep state actor, and it seems like he was put up to this by Obama to make sure that Flynn does not get that his case does not get dismissed because Flynn knows where all the bodies are buried. Remember, Flynn was I think he was the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence under Obama for a few years, and he continually undermined Obama's message. And Obama hated Michael Flynn. In fact, when Donald Trump brought Michael Flynn on to be his national security advisor, Obama told him not to do it. And I think that's exactly why Trump did do it. Because Michael Flynn knows where a lot of bodies are buried in the Clapper-Brennan-Obama intelligence swamp. He knew a lot of what was going on behind the scenes, the dirty deeds, the corruption, and that is why it was so important for them to take Michael Flynn out, and that is why it is so important for them now to make sure that Michael Flynn's case does not get dismissed, because once Michael Flynn's case is dismissed, his gag order is released, and he can then speak to the public and let them know everything that he knows. All the dirty laundry, he can air it out. So, we have this from Politico. Excuse me. Which we all know Politico is an absolute leftist rag. But Federal Appeals Court skeptical of Michael Flynn's effort to immediately dismiss criminal charge. Now, this is a long article, so I don't know if I'm going to read the whole thing. But we'll go through a bit of it, and we'll get to at least part of it. A federal appeals court appears poised to block an effort by former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn to immediately dismiss the criminal charge against him, raising the specter that the politically explosive case could continue to make headlines in the lead up to the November 3rd election. We're not going to have a November 3rd election. We are going to have an election month, which is going to end in chaos, confusion, and nobody knowing what's really happening. The court, in an unusual full-bench session on Tuesday that ran to almost 4 hours, sounded sharply skeptical about arguments by Flynn's attorney in the Justice Department that the U.S. District Judge Emmett Sullivan abused his authority by scheduling a hearing on efforts to drop the case, which came despite Flynn's pleading guilty to lying to the FBI and later reaffirming his plea. Now, what's important to note is that Flynn pleaded guilty because they were going after his son. And there were notes that the FBI didn't even think that Flynn lied to them. And there were also notes that Bill Priestap, I believe, FBI agent Bill Priestap I believe he went to meet with Michael Flynn with Agent Peter Strzok, who we all know is the one with the insurance plan against a Trump presidency, with his, skullduggerous lover Lisa Page, who they were having an affair together. That's another story, though. But in Bill Priestap's notes, he said, is the objective to get Flynn to confess or to get him fired? Something along those lines. It's something about getting him fired. I think, is it to press charges or to get him fired? To get him to incriminate himself or to get him fired? So, I'm not sure when getting people fired from their job has been in the purview of the FBI. And so we already know and we also have video of Comey publicly talking about how he probably should not have sent them in there, but because it was a brand new administration, he felt like he could get away with it. So he didn't clear any channels. He sent people in to talk to Michael Flynn, and without even telling them that he was under investigation. They thought it was a friendly chat. They were just getting information from him. And also, it was about the phone call with Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak, and they even said that it all seemed above board. So, anyways, let's go ahead. Just a little backstory on the Flynn case here. Because I know Politico is not going to share the stuff that makes the deep state, the Obama administration, and all of them look like they were doing misdeeds. They're going to try to pin this all on Michael Flynn pleaded guilty, therefore he's guilty. There are millions of reasons why people would plead guilty and take a deal as opposed to going through the entire process. And in this case, the FBI or the prosecutors withheld exculpatory evidence that cleared Michael Flynn so that he was not able to actually use that to clear his name. And so when they, who knows what else they tried to pin him with, but they were also going after his son, so he said, fine, I'll plead guilty to this. And now the judge is also trying to say, well, can we charge him with perjury because he entered a erroneous guilty plea? I've never heard that done. When you plead guilty to cop a deal, and just to make it go away, and then you rescind it, and they try to say that you committed perjury. This is abuse of the courts. If the appeals court rules against Flynn, the decision would create a vivid pre-election spectacle through a hearing that could draw attention both to Flynn's conduct and the claims of abuse of power that he has leveled at the FBI agents and prosecutors, allegations echoed often by President Donald Trump. Those are the allegations that I was telling you about just a minute ago, and they're not allegations. It's fact. It's fact. The documents are out. The documents are released. In fact, it was Crossfire Razor, and it was supposed to be dropped on, January 4th, 2017. It was supposed to be dropped, and then Peter Strzok ran in and said, keep Crossfire Razor open. And that's when they went. That's when they went on to bamboozle him. Am I using that word correctly? I don't know. Allegedly echoed by President Trump. Allegations echoed by President Trump. It could also crimp the president's ability to turn Flynn into a pre-election surrogate, and that is one of the biggest reasons for this. That, and because they know that it'll release the gag order and Flynn will be able to talk. But they don't want Trump to be able to use Michael Flynn as sort of a Nelson Mandela character on the election trail, especially against Joe Biden, who is part of this whole thing. Joe Biden was guilty in all of this. He was the one that suggested, per Peter Strzok's handwritten notes, that they used the Logan Act to go after Michael Flynn. The Logan Act, of course, being a law passed in 1799 about making it illegal for U.S. citizens to misrepresent themselves as representatives of the United States to foreign entities. Now, that law is, first of all, not a single person has ever been prosecuted under it, but it also became technologically obsolete with the invention of the telephone. Somebody just pick up a phone call and say, "Hey, is this guy really with your department?" The law is obsolete. It's archaic. And Biden was the one that came up with pushing the Logan Act on him. Of course, leave it to Biden to come up with such a terrible, terrible crime Joe Biden was probably alive when the Logan Act was passed. He probably wrote it. He probably wrote the bill. Nobody else even knows about it. Most of the 10 D.C. Circuit judges who heard argument seemed to agree that Flynn's prosecution on a felony charge of lying to the FBI was likely to be thrown out as a result of the Justice Department's abrupt decision to drop the case earlier this year. And that's the thing. Once the prosecutors drop the case, it is not the judge's role to continue prosecuting it. He is supposed to be an arbiter of the facts. He's supposed to be impartial. If the Justice Department says the prosecutors drop it, the case should be dropped. But the en banc court sounded poised to start with a smaller. But the en banc court sounded poised to part with a smaller appeals court panel that sided 2-1 with Flynn in June in his quest to force Sullivan to immediately shut down the case. So that was the thing. Sullivan was trying to keep the case open. So after the prosecutors dismissed it, after the Attorney General William Barr dismissed the case, Sullivan did not want to let it go, likely because he had orders from the deep state not to let the case go. And so it then went to an appeals court that sided with Flynn and said, yes, yes, Judge Sullivan, you have to let the case go. But he would not even let that go. So he took it to this en banc court, which means that you have all of the appeals judges in the district sit on the bench and hear it. A clear sign that Flynn was running into trouble on Tuesday came when Judge Thomas Griffith, the sole Republican appointee on the en banc court, who had not already ruled in Flynn's favor. Wow. The sole Republican appointee. So they're all Democrats. Suggested he believed a court rule that the Justice Department seized on to dismiss the case does give judges some role in making sure a case isn't dropped for an illegitimate political reason. This is judges ruling to give more power to judges. That's what's going on here. This is judges saying, no, they're usurping power from the executive branch. our legislative, not our legislative branch, our judicial branch is just run amok. They have gone crazy with power. They think that they get to define what laws can stay on the books, what laws can't, and now who can drop prosecutions and who can't. Favoritism for a politically powerful defendant. Isn't that one of the purposes? That seems right, to be right in the wheelhouse of what is going on here. No, it's not favoritism. There's proof that the judges the prosecution withheld exculpatory evidence, and when that is discovered, and you realize, okay, I don't have to plead guilty anymore because they can't get me on this, so I'm going to retract my plea, and then the prosecutors see that evidence and say, well, he's not guilty, we can't charge him. How is that favoritism? The comment from the appointee of George W. Bush, of course it was a George W. Bush appointee. All the judges that George W. Bush appointed are basically neocon liberals. They're neoliberals. Came after a contentious exchange with Flynn's lead attorney, Sidney Powell, about whether Sullivan's role in deciding the government's motion was substantive or not. All right. So let's see. I'm going to go through here and see some of this is. All right. So he goes, "Is it ministerial or not? Yes or no?" "It's pretty ministerial," Powell replied haltingly. "Well, Miss Powell, that's not helpful," Griffith responded. "It's not ministerial." I don't know what ministerial is, honestly. "You know that the judge has to do some thinking about it. He's not simply a rubber stamp." Yes, he is. When the prosecution says we're dismissing the case, the judge rubber stamps the dismissal because it's not his job. It is the prosecution's job to decide whether to prosecute or not. That's why they're called the prosecution. Flynn and the Justice Department did not appear to do any better with any of the other judges, aside from the two Republican-appointed appeals judges who ruled for Flynn earlier this year. Of course, because they were all Democrat-appointed judges who probably side with Democrat policies. Judge Nina Pillard aggressively challenged Acting Solicitor General Jeffrey Wall, noting that Flynn pleaded guilty in the case in 2017 and confirmed his plea again in 2018. Again, that doesn't mean anything. It's a plea. Before Attorney General William Barr ordered a reversal in May of this year that moved to drop the case. What self-respecting Article 2 judge would simply jump and enter an order without doing what he could do to understand both sides? What's the other side? You have the defense and the prosecution. The prosecution says, I didn't do it, and the defense is saying, we're withdrawing our plea. Or no. The defense is withdrawing the plea, and the prosecution is saying, you're right, there's new evidence, you didn't do it. There's nothing to hear from both sides. Both sides are in agreement on this, said Pillard, an appointee of President Barack Obama. Of course, these people are covering for Barack Obama. It's just really striking and remarkable that the government would. What is the government worried about? He only wanted an argument. From who? Both sides, the defense and the prosecution, were in agreement to drop the case. They're just trying to drag this out to protect Obama. Wall insisted that any hearing aimed at probing the government's reasons would intrude on the executive branch's constitutional power to decide which prosecutions to pursue and which to drop. Exactly. On these facts, I don't think there is any appropriate hearing that can be had, the acting Solicitor General said. Sullivan wants a hearing to probe our motives, Wall added. No sort of hearing like that is going to be permissible. On several occasions, Wall seemed to acknowledge that the arguments from the government and Flynn were not gaining traction with the judges. No, that's because they're all deep state actors. At several points, the Justice Department attorney moved it to a fallback position, urging the judges to set clear limits on what Sullivan can do at the hearing he plans to hold on the government's motion. Though at times he seemed resigned to take the loss, Wall lodged several arguments that offered insight into the Justice Department's view of the Flynn case. He raised the specter that Barr might be privy to secret information about the reasons for dismissing the case that he isn't allowed to tell the court, although it wasn't entirely clear that Wall was confirming that had happened in this instance. And, I think we're going to leave it here with this article because I don't want to go on too long with it, but I am going to go over here to Catherine Herridge's Twitter. Catherine Herridge has been doing a great job of covering this. And so we have this from her. Flynn, most intriguing and perhaps most significant revelation from today's oral arguments in appeals court. In line of questioning with Judge Merrick Garland, Now, if you guys remember Merrick Garland, he was the one that Obama nominated to the Supreme Court. And then Mitch McConnell did not hold the hearings until Trump came into office, and Trump disregarded the nomination. So Merrick Garland is probably pretty salty about anything that Trump's executive branch is trying to do. Merrick Garland, Acting Solicitor General Jeffrey Wall revealed Attorney General Eric Barr, who ultimately made the decision to drop the case. Context of non-public information from other investigations, crosstalk Garland. Wall continued, yes, I wanted to make clear that it may be possible that the Attorney General had before him information that was not available to share with the court, and so what we put in front of the court were the reasons that we could, but it may not be the whole picture available to the executive branch. Note, any non-public info is likely tied to the Durham probe and or U.S. Attorney Bash review of Flynn unmasking. And that's John Bash from Texas. He is the one put in charge of reviewing the Flynn unmasking situation, and whether it went beyond Flynn's case. So, yeah, and I'm sure this is almost guaranteed to be the point, that there is certainly going to be information that the Justice Department has that they have uncovered in the Durham probe and the Bash review that is going to further increase the reason to drop Flynn's case. In fact, this has become so transparently political. There is absolutely no reason that Flynn's case has not been dismissed outside of pure partisan protection of Barack Obama's administration. This is... The Flynn case is going to go down as one of the most abusive scandals in American history. And these judges here are furthering the abuse. This has cost Michael Flynn millions of dollars. He's had to sell his house to cover all this. And it's just insane. You got to realize, if they're going to do this to a 3-star general, imagine what they'll do to you if they want. This is the pure politicization of our court system. Let's see. I'm trying to see what more from Catherine Herridge here. This is a criminal case in which a man's liberty and entire life has been consumed by 4 years of litigation that the executive branch has now determined, within its sole discretion, should never have been brought against him. Mandamus, and its very purpose is to... Wait, is there more there? I feel like there's a tweet. Oh, okay, yeah. Its very purpose... Oh, hold on. Let's go back to that. Its very purpose is to correct a usurpation of power of the district judge exceeding his authority, which he did the very minute he appointed Mr. Gleason to step into the case in the role of a prosecutor. Essentially, General Michael Flynn, General Flynn, been through this for almost 4 years now, cost him millions of dollars, sell his house, been called a traitor and treasonous. It is imperative that this court restore the rule of law and issue the writ of mandamus to compel the judge to grant the motion to dismiss and to disqualify Judge Sullivan sufficient evidence of appearance bias that mandates his disqualification. The court's role is not as super prosecutor to second-guess a core function of the executive branch, but as a neutral arbiter of law. Exactly. He has lost that neutrality. Go get him, Catherine Herridge. So, anyways, guys, this is, keep Michael Flynn in your prayers. He is an absolute American hero for putting up with all of this. I read about a month or two ago. I did a Ram Reacts on a letter that Michael Flynn wrote, and it was amazing. So if you maybe go back and check out that video and hear what Michael Flynn had to say, incredible patriot. So let's hope this gets cleared up before November so that Flynn can actually talk. That's what this is all about. This is all about keeping Flynn from talking before the election. Plain and simple. So anyways, guys, I hope you liked this video. If you did, please hit the thumbs up button, give me a like, subscribe to the channel. I got a lot more stuff coming out. I got a lot of things I'm working on. Also, don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Parler at Ram Thorburn. And if you're interested in contributing to the channel, which would be greatly appreciated, there are links to my Subscribestar, Patreon, and PayPal down in the description below. Anyways, guys, thank you for watching, and I hope you'll have a wonderful night.